Welcome back. I had a fantastic year for vinyl finds. I managed to check off a lot of items on my want list. It seems like that list keeps growing and growing. At the beginning of the year, one of my resolutions was to slow down on acquiring records and start purging some of them. Unfortunately, that didn't go as planned. With extra free time and a lack of budget control, I ended up buying more than I intended. A good portion of these records filled my gaps in my Northwest rock collection, but there are some still big ones to fill. In the last issue of Record Collector News, which is issue 109, I placed an ad for my top Northwest grunge related vinyl. You can find it on page 33. If you have any or know where I could find any of these titles, please hit me up. I also placed an ad on page 39 highlighting my top 5 psych records I'm searching for, but I'll save that for my upcoming Top Psych Finds 2024 video. Okay, my top grunge Pacific Northwest vinyl finds of 2024. These records that I'm about to show first are getting a special mention. They didn't really make the list, but they could have and they should have made the list, but I was only going to pick 10. Okay. The Bards. These guys played in 66, 67, 68 in Seattle. Psychedelic, garage-ish. They have a great cover of My Generation. The Crome Cyrcus. These guys played in 66, 67, 68 in Seattle and San Francisco. The whole second side is a song called Love Cycle, which is the name of the album. 17 minutes. Great cover. Fine. They've got the mono and the stereo. I picked that up this year. The Daily Flash. They also played in 66, 67. They didn't put out an album, but this album came out in 1980. It's a compilation of their singles. Side 2 has live version of them doing Herbie Hancock's Cantaloupe Island, and then a Bob Dylan Queen Jane Approximately cover. Really, really good stuff. This came out in 1979, Doc Rockit from Spokane. Just this past month, Noble Records and Too Many Records out of Portland reissued this. Nice color vinyl. This is great. 79 hard rock, very similar to Rail, if you're familiar with that band from Seattle. The Floating Bridge. This is a band I never even heard of before this year. This album came out in 1969. Really good psychedelic rock on Volt. The Floating Bridge is named after the bridge in North Seattle that goes from the west side to the east side. Really good stuff. Magic Fern. They also didn't have an album in the 60s, but they played in the 60s along with Daily Flash. This is a 1980 compilation. Really good. Nice psych. PH Factor Merryjuana. Another band that did not put out an album in the 60s, but they were integral in the 60s Seattle scene. On Piccadilly. Same 1980, good compilation of the singles. And the surprise package, 1968. This album came out in 1968. Really good psych, hard rock from 1968. And the last special mention that didn't make my list is the Wailers. Walk Through the People. This came out in 1965 on Bell Records. Really good. The last track of side 1 and the last track of side 2, really good fuzz guitar. Don't sleep on the mid-60s Wailers. The 65, 66, 67 period is great Wailers stuff. Now on for the top 10. This is in no particular order. This is the Sonics, November 1964, their very first single, The Witch. They came out strong with this single. And then a few months later in May, they released Here Are the Sonics. I've been looking for this for a while. I've had Sonics Boom for a long time, and I've had some reissues, but I've never had the OG. This is the OG mono. It's got the catalog number up on the top. There's another version where the catalog number's on the bottom. It's got that red Ettiquitte label to show you that it truly is an OG. The first track on this is The Witch. I also picked up at the same time this summer is the second pressing from 1966. You can tell the difference because this has got the purple label and this has the catalog number on the bottom. This is mono as well. You want the mono, the stereo's out there, but this is a mono listen for sure.
She's an evil chick. Say she's the witch.
Next up on my top 5 is Fred Cole from Portland. He was in the band called The Weeds and the Lollipop Shoppe and then Dead Moon and a bunch of others. But I got this spring. This is The Weeds from October 1966. It's Your Time. And the B-side is Little Girl. Little Girl was a cover of the 1965 Van Morrison's Them song. This is really good garage rock. This is super rare. They recorded this in Vegas when he lived in Vegas before the band moved to LA and then up to San Francisco and then to Portland when their name got changed. I also have a reissue, 2008 UK, of this same single, and then in 87, there was a picture sleeve of the same single. That was 66. I picked up as well their album, The Lollipop Shoppe. This is a self-titled album. It came out, nope, not self-titled. It's called Just Color. This came out in 1968. It's garage and psych, more garage. Fred Cole sings. It's really good. There's a couple of really good standout tracks. No single came of this. It was on the Uni label. Very hard to come by. The Lollipop Shoppe. And the year after that album was released, they put out a single called Someone I Knew. Someone I Knew. And the B-side, Through My Window. After the singles was released, they broke up as a band. They got back together in 72 to put out a single, which I don't own, but that was it for the Weeds and the Lollipop Shoppe.
Oh, I can see her by the doorstep.
My next top find jumps a bunch of years from what, 68 to 86. Deep Six on CZ Records. This is a compilation that came out in March of 1986. This is before anyone was signed to Sup Pop. Green River, Malfunction. Andy Wood was in Mother Love Bone, and when he died, people from Green River and Mudhoney did Temple of the Dog and Soundgarden. And then there's Melvins, Skinyard, Soundgarden, U-Men. This is a great, rare compilation. I've looked for it for years and finally was able to pick this up actually from Daniel House of Skinyard, probably in February. Really great compilation. And the next up, a few months later, September, of 1986, Sup Pop put out their first LP. This is a compilation called Sup Pop 100. There is no grunge on here. Steve Albini, Sonic Youth, U-Men, Steve Fisk, but no grunge at all. They would get into grunge a little bit later. Okay, up next would be a few years later, after the Sub Pop and Deep Six compilation, that would bring us to 1988. Dead Moon, In the Graveyard. This is their very first LP on their own Tombstone Records. This is the very first, not the first thing they put out, but it's their first LP they put out. The first thing they put out is Parchment Farm and Hey Joe, and then Don't Burn the Fires, Can't Help Falling in Love. That's an Elvis cover. These are the first singles they did in '88. These singles come from this album. Fred Cole again, he was in Lollipop Shoppe, he was in The Weeds. He was in his 40s at this time. I first saw these guys in 1993 at the Color Box in Seattle, and I had no idea the history of Fred Cole. I was up front row, and I was there to see another band who I don't even remember anymore. And these guys rocked. They were a three-piece punk, and it was so good. He had his own label, Tombstone Records. He had his own lathe. He had the same lathe in Portland, Oregon, where they did the Wailers version of Louie Louie, where they pressed that. So he pressed his own labels. He was a force to reckon with. Fred Cole. So Dead Moon. Now we're going 4 years after that, 1992. This is War Babies. This is their only album. War Babies was a band from Seattle who played in 89, 90 different incarnations. The bass player of Pearl Jam, Jeff Ament, played in this band briefly. This is heavy metal, hard rock. It came out in 92, right when grunge was the rave. And that's what killed these guys. This album is super rare. That was never pressed in the United States, but they have it in the Netherlands, they have it in Brazil, and in Spain. This is the Netherlands pressing. I've looked for years to find this, and glad I finally grabbed this. Okay, the next grunge Seattle find I grabbed this year was Green Apple Quickstep. This is their album, Wonderful Virus, their first album. This is an acetate. This came out in 1993. They were popular locally, but they weren't popular. They didn't really make it big. After this album, they released a couple albums, but they were a band called Inspector Love and the Ride Me Babies before they turned in to Green Apple Quickstep. And they're most notable for, on October 22nd, 1990, Mookie Blaylock, which is the name of Pearl Jam before they changed their name to Pearl Jam, played their first show at the Off-Ramp, and they opened for Inspector Love and the Ride Me Babies and Bathtub Gin. And then, not too long after that, they would change their name to Green Apple Quickstep. They had a single, Pay the Rent. I got this from Marianne Brady, who is the bass player of this band. I went to high school with her and her boyfriend. Green Apple Quickstep. Next find from 2024, the US pressing of Pearl Jam's 10 album. Although this came out in 1991, this did not get released on vinyl in the US until 1994. It was in fact released in Europe earlier, which I have, but I've never had the pressing of this. This is a first pressing, and Robert Ludwig is in the dead wax. This is the best Pearl Jam in my opinion. Also in 1994, his whole second album, Live Through This. This came out the same month that Kurt Cobain killed himself, was found dead. Great album. Very rare, hard to find. This is from Germany. They didn't release this on vinyl in the United States until many years later. Really glad to have picked this up. Okay, the last album of my list would be Alice in Chains. This came out in 1994. This is their self-titled album. I found this summer in San Francisco. Sometimes they refer to this as the Tripod album. It's a good album. It's not a great album. To me, the best song on the album is the last track. I like this album, but I prefer these. And there you have it. My top grunge Pacific Northwest vinyl finds of 2024. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more of this vinyl related content. Also, and if you could help me track down any of the items on my want list, I would be forever in your debt. Happy New Year, everyone. I'll catch you in the next video.
Every night till there was no place where you could go.